Hi everyone, I'm Marcus. I work developer relations with Edge and Node, building the graph. And welcome to the Graph Builders Office Hours. We have a friend of mine on today, Matheus. Go ahead and say hi to everyone on stream.
Hello, GM.
GM, I met you, I think it was Waterloo. Was it Waterloo? ETHGlobal Waterloo? I think that was it.
It was even before, I guess, Lisbon.
Was it? No, I wasn't in Lisbon. I didn't go to Lisbon.
It was an ECC last year, definitely. I was inviting some people to yeah, I remember. I was inviting some people to a class, and you were around and doing your thing.
That was Paris. That's right. So yeah, we got along immediately, and I saw him with his mentor vest, and he was mentoring so many hackers, and it was such an incredible sight to see him just hustling around, and I'm hustling around, and we're just getting along great with everybody. So what I'll do in a minute is actually hand over the presentation to Matheus in a second. But first, quick announcements, and I want to keep on highlighting this. I highlighted this last week also. But for those builders out there who are wanting to get into subgraph and substream development and want a more curated mentorship, go ahead and go to buildersdao.tech. There is a DAO out there that is very experienced in building subgraphs, substreams, and they're looking for people who want to take subgraph and substream development seriously. And they have a wonderful, wonderful website. So I'll just drop that in the chat before we go on too far. So builders DAO.tech. There we go. And that's in there. And there, thank you for dropping that link in there. Is that Lewis? That's Lewis. I'm right now, literally the sun is hitting the screen, my second monitor. I can't see a thing over there. Anyways, so that's the only announcement that I want to have so far. And I'll hand over the presentation to Matheus. And before you get into your workshop, before you get into what you're presenting, Matheus, could you give the audience a background of yourself, how you got into Web3, how you got into crypto, and how you got started as a mentor at ETHGlobal? That is a cool position that you have.
Oops, that's great. That's great. Well, I started back in 2016. We put this company together in December 19, because we were working with a lot of blockchain technology at the time. But before, it was much more like crypto oriented, and I wanted to do an impact in the technology. And back then, we started this company. It had another name like BFT Technology, something like that, back in the day. And then we rebranded because we want to build Web3 tech, not just the token cryptocurrencies part. We want to actually build smart contracts. We want to actually build decentralized applications that stand. And this is where we started this whole venture, this whole idea of building the apps, building solutions, and teaching people. But when we started in 2020, it was like all hyped around. We hired an office here in São Paulo, a big place nearby the Avenida Paulista and all. And then what happened in 2020? Pandemics, it threw the whole plan down. And then we started some online boot camps and all for teaching people. It started very slow, like 20 people in the whole year. But then it picked it up. I started teaching with some other companies, in Code Club, with the Graph, like I'm doing the Graph community here in Brazil. And it really picked it up. I have educated more than 3,000 people now for Web3. Started with AI last year too. And it was only natural for me to do that before hackathons too, preparing people to hack at hackathons, tagging along projects, building at hackathons, because this is what I built my company for helping projects with cutting edge technology for Web3 and AI. So this kind of summarizes everything.
Yeah, and I want to bring up one final thing. Not only have you been teaching a lot, and also experienced as a builder in Web3 and bringing a lot of tech around, but every time I see you, you're always smiling, having a good time, and that's also very important in these hackathons. And we're about to get into that here, because how many times, I've seen you probably at hackathons at least 6 or 7 times now, and the amount of stress and strain on people is crazy. And if we talked about this a few weeks ago when I was getting you set up for this, and I said, Matheus, you've seen so many hackathons. What would be best? What were like the pro tips of the soft skills of that you would want every hackathoner to know before they get going with a hackathon? Because I feel so many projects win or lose based on these kind of soft skills that are not necessarily technological. It's more of like how they could win just by understanding the organization, the dynamics of a hackathon. So that was a fun conversation we had.
This is exactly the point. And I like to compare hackathons with icebergs because you see the tip of it. It's like winning, build a project and win, right? It's a competition for projects. So it's only natural that you focus in your project. But then you miss out the whole thing. Then you get stressed, then you build a project, might win bounties and all, but you miss the whole thing. Because a hackathon, and this is exactly what we're going to speak about, right? Pick the next slide. It is for people. The big prize of a hackathon, it sounds cliche and all, but I'm going to demonstrate why and how, is the people that you meet and the connections that you make during the hackathon. And this is way more powerful, 100 times more, 1,000 times more powerful than any kind of bounties, any kind of project that you build. And this is true for things that are not related to hackathons too. Whenever you build a project, the people that you meet and the experience that you have in the day-to-day life, in the building of it, are way more important than the actual project. And this sounds misleading because like making friends don't give you money, but
it's so true. I mean, it's so true. The hackathon projects that I've seen that are technically impressive, of course, they're going to win money, and that's great. And the ones that I've felt, okay, this is the purpose of Web3. Like, this is the purpose of Web3. That's a different thing than being technically impressive and having a good presentation. Those are the teams that embody the values of Web3 and are able to build on that using the tools they have in front of them. And it's really clear within 1 or 2 minutes of seeing their project of being like, oh, this crew gets it. And what's always been consistent about those teams is their ability to communicate in a way that not only are they communicating with us in person, but they want to get our telegrams. They want to keep building. They want to actually say, hey, what's the next step? How can we actually make this thing not just a hackathon project, but build more relationships with this project and actually use it as a calling card? And those always excite me. Those projects that have legs, that have a vision. Last week had an incredible guest on, Faith M. Roberts, who was talking about one of her hackathon projects, and she's doing exactly that. She and her team are building for an incredible use case that's very crypto native, and I just love these projects so much. So I'm curious, Matheus, where this workshop is going to go today. I'm curious what your pro tips are.
Exactly. And it depends on the goals, right? This is my first question. What are your goals? So speaking from my personal experience, when I saw this iceberg thing and I figured out, oh, so it's not about $10,000. It's not about pitching my project to a VC. It's not about getting market exposure. It is actually about forming bonds. Then I basically stopped competing. My last hackathon that I competed, it was 18, I guess, 17 or 18, if I recall correctly. After that, I just started mentoring. I just start participating whenever I can, being along, tagging along. Because when you are competing, I'm not speaking for you guys who job competing and all. It's just that when you are competing, you have some bonds with like few people, 10 people, a few dozen maximum. Are your group members, the sponsors that you speak to, the groups around you, and that's great. But when you are mentoring, or when you are an organizer, DevRel there, no, you can speak to everyone. You don't have boundaries. You can connect to everyone. So my goal, for example, is to create connections and maybe even friendships, right, Marcus? We meet people around and now. So this is the first question. What are your goals for the hackathon, right? Thinking on what are your goals for participating and let's say you're hacking at ETHGlobal Singapore or ETHGlobal San Francisco or some online hackathon, what do you want to achieve that? This is the first thing that we should think before starting, right?
And you're speaking individually, like just as a person, before I even, like the minute I say, okay, I'm going to go to this hackathon, afterwards, or even before I sign up for a hackathon, think personally, what are my goals? Like, what am I trying to do here? Is that what you're saying? And as opposed to a team? Okay, cool. Yeah.
And also the goals, like the individual goals inside your team, because I'm going to speak about team formation later. And if you have a misalignment of goals, I see that this is one of the biggest source of problems. Which is speak, what are your enemies? So, for example, misalignment of goals. You have a person that wants to learn, it's just there for learning, experiment with things. It's not worried with winning Boughton's prize, whatever. I want to maximize my learning. I want to ask a lot of questions, even theoretical questions and all. Pairing up with another person that needs to pay the bills. I need to earn at least $2,000 in this boot camp to pay my bills, for my travel bills and all. Or I want to build this project and present that for a VC. This kind of misalignment can create so much problems. So having those goals well set for you, for yourself in your mind, even before you start the hackathon, even before you travel to the hackathon, can solve you a lot of problems. Having that defined. Pick a mirror, chat with it, and define what do I want to achieve here.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's something I've seen when teams are forming up. There's a lot of glassy eyes. It reminds me of just like being younger and like hoping you were picked for the sports team, or I was being picked for to play basketball. Like I hopefully I'm picked, and then I see that team formation. Everyone's a little bit confused. I really do find the individuals that not only know what they want, but also, to your point about making friends, they already know who's going to be at the hackathon. They already know. They know, hey, Sarah's going to be here and Tim's going to be there. And I've met them at previous hackathons and I know their skill sets. It automatically is very, very powerful. Even if you just know one person, it's very powerful.
Exactly. So my tips for today, let's get to it. What are your biggest enemies? What are the biggest blocks that I see in those like 8 years of hackathons that I participated? Those 5 that I have been mentoring, from that I spoke to, situations that I saw happening. Your biggest enemy is not execution, as everyone thinks. The biggest enemy is bad coordination. This is what defeats 2/3 of great projects that I see out there. It also applies for things outside of hackathon too. But for hackathon projects, if you have great execution, great idea, but you don't know how to coordinate, this can defeat you. This can put you at this size, while another person, another team with good execution, maybe a bad idea or okay idea, but with good coordination, can beat you to the game. This is by far the biggest factor that can make a hackathon game, can limit your hackathon game. Second one, it's not execution too, it would be a bad idea. Because if you do a great execution and great coordination, but at the end the judges don't like your idea, or you can't present your idea, or the idea is not solving any real pain, and that's a criteria for the prize, it can get you later. This is like a hidden threat that it can be lurking there. You don't detect it at first. You start building your project full speed, and then boom, it gets you at the end, and then you figure out too late. This happened a lot. You have judged a lot of hackathon projects too, Marcus. Don't know if you want to jump in here, but what do you say when you see that great execution, but for an idea that looks very bad?
Oh, it's just sad. I guess I feel sadness because yeah, like you want the project to feel like a hot tamale. Like you're like, oh man, this is going to be delicious. It's going to be everything I want. Sometimes you want a tamale that does exactly what you want it to do, and it just doesn't.
Exactly.
And it's like, oh, like there was something in the first 10 minutes of this project that something went off. and everyone knows it. Like they know it, we know it, and I'm curious on your thoughts on how to identify when it's a bad idea. Specifically, like when do you know it's a bad idea?
This is the problem. Most of the cases you don't. You discover too late. Because when you're not coordinating well, it's easy to know. My next situation would be the bad technical execution. That is what most people focus on. And when your code is not working, it's super clear. But when it is a bad idea, then it's more difficult. I'm going to have some suggestions down the road, but this is the great metaphor you put, Marcus. A badly executed cake or hamburger or whatever can be more delicious than a good executed salad or good executed like just bread or whatever, because
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
you have
Yeah,
different things.
I guess for me, if if someone's coming into a hackathon and they understand Web3 values in terms of decentralization and in terms of the use case for having a public ledger, a transparent ledger, and then starts from there and understands the power of decentralization and blockchain technology and really understands that, uh, how that's different. That is a great place to start. And this is just something I'm thinking of, as we're speaking right now in this conversation. For the teams that build something that essentially is a Web 2 application that they just put on chain, it's like, okay, that still can be cool. But those teams that come up with something that really is thoughtful about how blockchain is a better option, that's rarely a bad idea. That's rarely a bad idea.
Exactly. So let's pick each of those. Let's see, for example, how to solve coordination. I've selected three of the top causes, but we could expand on more if you want to bring Marcus. I have selected team formation. For me, is a premium. If you do that correctly, you got a good hackathon. If you do that badly, you got a bad hackathon. Guaranteed, at least for me. Planning and communication. Those there are many others that we could put there, but those are the biggest representations of problems that I saw out there. To know if you agree, dear Marcus, but this would be my top three for giving hints. First of all, coordination for team formation. The size and composition, for example, deciding to go solo can be a good decision. It's not what I would suggest. You're missing out a lot of possible friendship, partnerships, connection there. But it's better than go with a bad team. I'm not saying that it's a team that's going to perform badly. It's, for example, if you want to learn and you learn solo, it is better than trying to learn with a team of competitive hackers because they are going to be pushing you for producing, for coding, for delivering, and you want to have a time to explore. And vice versa, if you are a very good hacker that you want to win bounties and you enter a team of people that are just exploring around, willing to learn, willing to chat, you're not going to have a good experience. So try and find people that have the same goal. One person with the same goal can be much more powerful than teaming up with three, four people with different goals, because that can be difficult to coordinate. It can be difficult for you guys to agree on what you're building, right? And even when we find those people, it's important to be able to compose the skills. There are strategies to find the most overlaps, like four technical geniuses that are just looking for the tech side and then they build a wonder in a hackathon. That's great. But also, you could be maximizing for balancing. For example, one person is going to take care of design, but that person doesn't know anything about coding. Another person is going to take care of the presentation. They don't know how to code too. And I'm going to focus on the front end, and I have this other person to focus on the back end. That's a great way to compose. So everyone has a boundary. They meet in the middle. Usually, we need one person to be the glue, to be the. It's not good at anything, but it's good at communication and coordination. But it can be a good composition going that way, right? I would like to call out diversity too, because if you have all of the same, uh, only Let's make a team of Brazilian guys that like barbecue. Okay, that is going to be a great team. We're going to have a lot of chats. You like barbecue too, right, Marcus?
I've been
But
having some picanha this last few weeks. Yeah.
oh, that's great.
Yeah. For anyone out there who hasn't had a Brazilian barbecue just yet, please have some picanha. It is so good.
Yeah.
Matheus and I have talked a little bit about picanha.
Yeah, we might try this out in San Francisco. Let's close this
Yeah.
subject. But you're going to miss out a lot of diversity, and innovation comes from diversity. Having people that think different, that don't agree with you, that find it gross than when you eat meat, like pairing up with vegetarians in this example. So yes, you could pair up, like if you're a vegetarian, pair up with a lot of vegetarians so you can go and eat out together. Great. But outside of this kind of very practical examples, when you have diversity of thinking, people from different regions, people of different experiences, different social constructions, you can put all of that inside your project and have a multiplication factor of thousands because you don't have those vices, those biases when you are just with people 100% like you. That applies
Yeah.
for experience as well. Having people of
Yeah. I mean,
different
that makes
experience
so much
levels.
sense. I feel, and I've seen this mistake made by hackers that are fantastic developers, and and it's not their fault. It's just being an individual. If you're an individual, you're only as good as your two eyes, your two ears, your mouth, and your brain. Like that's, and you got your hands, and that's great, but you're limited just by the state of your existence. If you're able to find someone so different than you that has value alignment, but very different, wow, like that's really cool. Because essentially you are getting a multiplier of that perspective. And not only are you getting that perspective, but you're getting all the problems that they have that you don't have. And the only reason we're here is to solve problems. Like that's what tech is here for. So the diversity is not just, I think, a pop culture kind of popular word. It's they have different problems than you will ever have. And that is the representation of diversity that I think is really powerful. That, okay, if I have a whole new problem set that I never understood, cool, there we go. Now we can start talking in a more creative way. And I have a whole problem set that they will never have. That's really, really cool to double and triple and quadruple the possibilities with just one extra person that's very different, that's value aligned.
Exactly. And this is going to give you a lot of bonus later when we speak about ideation. I am a living proof of that. Whenever I travel for first world countries, speaking about blockchain now, and people sometimes say we are lacking day-to-day use cases. Being a Latin American here in Brazil, I have friends in Argentina that like it is so obvious why we need crypto, just to protect ourselves against the inflation, to just cross-border transfer and all. Then it is like, why do you need water? People say that water is overrated. Why do you need water? Because for us, it is a real pain that we use crypto for solving these pains. And for people in like Canada, United States, Europe, this can have no value because they can protect themselves from inflation. They can do cross-border transfer easily, and diversity can help a lot here because you're not hearing that from someone else that you don't know. We're actually the people inside the team having these kind of experiences, right?
Exactly. I mean, that is perfect example of the day-to-day use case of crypto is in full swing in Latin America, and it is in production. It is live and it is highly in demand. And I think it's a great thing. We have a lot of developers on Edge and Node from Argentina, and it's incredible to see how much motivation they have just every single day. They're just jumping in and saying, this is what we need to do, this is how we need to do it every day. It's a mission for them.
Exactly. You can only have that when you do diversity. So
Yeah.
it is a key point for team composition. The same thing applies for experience too. Having juniors, having people with all the set of experience that you don't have to compose it very well, but need to be done with care. Okay, need to be done with care because this can cause attrition to know that differences are difficult to deal is that like how we are biological programming requires a lot of experience of like social experience, social control for you to be like yourself, elevated and humble, to know that you have another person that's different for you. And
Mm,
unfortunately, that's not that easy to master. We'll speak about
mm,
communication later too. You're going to see an expression of that.
mm,
This applies for goal alignment too, like we spoke. For example, balancing competitive and learning goals, and also financial expectations. If you have someone in your team that needs to win $2,000, at least you pay the bills in that trip, like traveling for a hackathon, like go professional and help that person, because then you can start fighting because of your internal uh, urge for solving that situation, and the other person is allocating, no, yeah, we are going to lose, no problem, let's just chill. That can create so much differences because you're not having the same vision, the same goals, that this can even spark fights and discussions in the middle of the hackathon. I've seen that happen, and it's difficult to solve, to put it out, because it was a problem even before the hackathon started. It was a problem of goal misalignment, and that can get back at you, can cap your potential progress and earnings, and even the friendship can be harmed if you are not goal aligned and going for a
yeah.
hackathon.
And I'm going to bring up kind of an elephant in the room right here. And I think this is the case for not just hackathons, but just interpersonal dynamics. When do you complain? When do you say, hey, this person I'm talking to, it seems like we're not value aligned. It seems like your goals are different than mine. I know we synced up as a team not 30 minutes ago. Like, how do we, ideally, we talk about this right in the beginning. And this goes, I think, beyond hackathons. I think this goes into being a professional in terms of, hey, we are here for a purpose. How do I bring up a problem that I see in a professional kind way that will only help myself personally and then also the team in the long run? It's tricky to do that, especially when there's a timetable. Hey, you've created a team and there's 5 or 6 people, and one or two you're just like, like
Yeah,
there has
it's
to be a choice
difficult,
made. Yeah.
especially because like we have communication barriers, like we might be hiding that information because we don't know how the other side is going to listen, or we are just from different places. Like in Brazil, we are very friendly, we hug around and all, but people like from Asia or North America, they behave totally different. So these communication barriers between people, especially with different affinity levels and personalities, it's super difficult to deal. And tell me what, the people that crack this game are the most successful in the world. Are not the one that are super genius programmers, are not the one that are super genius marketers and sales. No, are people that that crack the communication game on knowing how to have empathy, to read the other person, to put your statement correctly. You can choose that for manipulating, like become a politician or whatever, populist, and then conquer a country. You can go that way. I wouldn't advise. Or you can do that for being a super communicator, a good boss, a good team leader, or a good human resource professional that can tie people together, that can glue people together. And it's fun how is that when we see like hero movies, that we always have that factor of people getting together, of people understanding themselves. They go through a lot of things, and then somehow they can collaborate later. And it's tricky. It's not something it's easy to do in a slide, but
It's the
it's tricky.
softest of soft skills. It's such a soft skill to develop, because we're talking about things many times at these hackathons that are hard skills. JavaScript, Python, Solidity, subgraphs, substreams, all hard skills. All there's right and then there's wrong, and these soft skills of being able to identify a team leader, being able to identify who's an asset, who's not, being able to communicate that well. It is a life skill. It's a real life skill that I think at a hackathon is really amplified by 10. Because
Exactly.
you got 72 hours. Like, let's go.
And it's crazy. This is one of the things that I'm kind of privileged to see when I'm teaching, because during like boot camps and workshops and all, I can see people by who they are. And this is something that I bring a lot in my company, like having good people. I start with good people, junior, senior, doesn't matter, good people, And everything that they lack in hard skills, we can get later. Because building soft skills takes years, decades sometimes. Sometimes you can't even do that. I have a lot of soft skills that I try to develop myself that I simply can't progress. Every time I measure, I'm going back and I'm like, oh no, what's happening? With hard skills, much easier. You dedicate yourself, you put yourself to that, and you improve. Soft skills is much more difficult to go. So, how to solve
I have
that?
a question. I have a quick question in chat, and this is thank you, Louis, for highlighting. Anyone in chat, if you have a question, I see everyone's chatting. Just write down in big letters "question," so I know it's a question. Where is it? I had it a second ago. And how do you approach mentoring others when you personally, Matheus, when you see or you think they're working on a bad idea? Do you have a story maybe that you're like, oh man, this is a bad idea?
Yeah, I never touched this point. I always help with coordination. That's something I help a lot on team formation. But whenever I see a bad idea, I never go there because I don't consider myself a good evaluator to judge someone else's idea as bad. I know some of the bases and I can discuss the bases, but every time that I tried this, it wasn't many, like two, three times that I gave a feedback about an idea, I was wrong. I found myself that I was wrong because when I understood all of the chain of thought, why they are doing that and all, I saw that the advices that I gave were bad, were uh, uh, weren't improving the idea, or was working against it. So these questions, like whenever I'm mentoring and I see a bad idea, I never help by saying that it's a bad idea. We try and understand. But whenever I can help with the coordination, with the execution and all, then I'm more straightforward because I'm more confident that I can help.
Sure. I don't know if I'd be that strong, especially early. And if it's within the first 3 to 5 hours of a hackathon, I might say something.
Yeah, you're more straightforward because you're much more experienced with
might.
ideas of people too. Because I only see some ideas, you see all of them, so maybe you are more experienced for that.
Only if it's early. If it's day 2, I'm like, I can't say anything. But if it's within the first day, first few hours, and someone comes up and they're like, oh, I don't know, I might say something.
But I'm going to give some directions here for ideation later too, because if you start well with a good process for ideation, the probability of you having a bad idea is much lower. The ability for detecting a bad idea is more difficult, but the ability for creating a good idea is more of a good size. Okay. So if you want your idea to be shot down, go for Marcus. If you don't want your idea to be praised, go for me.
I try to be nice. I do the sandwich technique where you start with a compliment and then just, and then compliment.
I know how it goes.
Sometimes works.
Yeah, I have a little trauma with feedbacks for ideas here because most of the time I see people giving feedback for ideas. It's for the worst, and then I try not to go that way. Maybe it is a personal thing. Now, we spoke a lot of theoretical things. Let me give you two practical things too. Availability during the hackathon. Discuss that. Definitely discuss that. What time are going to be available? If you like gotta go out with the family, with the girlfriend, if you have animals to train to, if you're going to be there 24/7, or if you want to hack just 2 hours per day, discuss that in the beginning because when things turn sour in the last day, when you have a lot to do and someone goes out to party or to have a time out that is reasonable, but you didn't discuss that before, that can cause problems here. Discuss availability, not create a calendar, some sort of schedule, do that for 2 minutes, no pressure, but discuss availability because that's super important. And discuss accountability too. Like I'm responsible for that, you are responsible for that. I'm going to hold myself accountable. I'm going to be humble if I fail. And now everyone fails, it's okay. But hiding things, it's super dangerous here. Say out loud what you don't know. There is this all ego battle. Like I want to be beautiful. I want everyone to look at me because I'm very strong. And then I hold myself up. And then when you go for coding, you don't know how to center a div. I don't know how to center a div. That's common. Be transparent about that. Tell that to people. and then hold yourself accountable for your parts of the hackathon project. It's super important.
Yeah, great guidance here.
About planning, definition of scope. Don't overdo anything that I put in those bullet points. Don't overdo. Don't create a 10 pages somewhere about the project. It's one line. Define the scope, put it somewhere. I'm going to speak about that in communication, but have that written somewhere for you to set the goals and objectives. 3 bullet points, okay, people. 4 or 5 if you want. Don't overthink. Ask AI to generate that if that's the case, but have it written somewhere. If you wake up and look at the board, this goal and objectives there, and you work at that, that's great. If that's not well communicated, not well aligned, that can give you problems down the road. Ideally, you're going to have a high level action plan, 3 pieces, 5 pieces, one after the other in a chain, so you can know what is the next thing. You are never idle. Idling is your biggest enemy in the resource planning. And a practical tip: always assign one task to one responsible person. It's like in playing a football game or ball game. It's always one person with the ball. If the ball is shared, no one's carrying that. If the ball drops, no one is responsible. Marcos and we are going to be responsible for buying the picanha for the barbecue. And you are going to be responsible for buying the charcoal. Okay, we go to the barbecue. That is charcoal, but that is no picanha. And then I look to Marcos. Hey, didn't you buy? And then Marcos tell me, no, Matheus, didn't you buy? And then we have a shared responsibility. This is bad. It can be good because you're multiplying workforce.
I am so hungry. I am so hungry for some tamales, for some picanha. We've got a good plan tonight, guys.
Yeah, but you get the picanha, I get the farofa.
Yeah.
Okay, one task per person. Let's not divide the same task in 2, 3 persons because it can go down. If you have 2, 3 persons capable for a task, like 2 front-end engineers that can code the front end, divide tasks. Person A is going to be responsible for this landing page and sign up and whatever. Person B is going to be responsible for that smart contract integration and purchase flow, whatever. Divide those tasks, okay, in the high level plan because this can enhance you a lot in your hackathon game. Ideally, you would have visibility for those tasks. Can be post-its. Okay, if you have post-its, or write it somewhere, pick up paper or somewhere, or you can use boards like digital boards or in your table. It can be post-its in your table, so that you know when you are late, what is the next task now. And you can even use some project management frameworks like Agile and our Kanban. Don't overdo. All of those bullet points can be expanded for days of work. Don't overdo. 1 minute in this, 5 minutes if you can, then it's done. It is going to pay off. Use some sort of Pareto rule here. And please use version control tools. I've seen a lot of times in the Sunday, the last day, people are going to merge things together. Everyone is in the master branch, in the main branch, and they mix up.
I've seen projects submit their GitHub repos to nothing. Like it literally is an empty repo. And like they have a working demo. I can see their Vercel and I'm actually working with it. And I can't access their code. And I'm just like, and you know, judging is I have to submit in 40 minutes. And I'm messaging them on Discord, like version control and making sure the links are submitted correctly. Like these little things. If I can't see, for example, the subgraph or the substream or the front end that is querying a subgraph, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's worthless. Your 72 hours is worthless. So yeah.
So explain why people don't do that. I never understand. People, if you're listening to that, do version controls. Version control can be your project management framework. You can, for example, use GitHub to open pull requests. You mark it as work in progress, WIP, and that's it. You have a list of tasks of work in progress, And boom, you have visibility. Now you have version control, and now everyone is ready. Now no one needs to kill yourselves at the
Yeah.
last day because it didn't
And
push.
one thing that I would say, and I've given teams this tip 100 times, is the second you have a functioning MVP, don't touch that branch again. Fork it and keep on building another branch. Just know that you have an MVP that absolutely works, and then fork from there and keep on building on that separate fork. Do not continue building when you have
Totally.
finished an MVP. just go somewhere else.
Yeah, I see that a lot. People think, oh, I can always revert. I can always go back to a branch. It never works. Never. I never saw someone doing a command and rebase and that's it. Never works. There is always an environment file. There is always some assets or some configuration that is missed that can throw you down. And then it's the most stressful part of the hackathon. Okay? I've seen people willing to throw punches at the hackathon because of this. Hey,
I've seen fights. I've literally seen 2 fights at hackathons. Like they never got to blows, but they were like in each other's faces. I'm like, guys, like,
yeah,
it's intense. Yeah.
and then you start arguing why and why. So start well. Do some planning. This is not overdoing. This is not overthinking. Do like 5 minutes on those and set up your version control. That's it. That's simple. Help yourself in the hackathon. You're going to be able to track your progress and adjust the scope as needed, and have those fallback plans. Like Marco said, have if you have a working feature, fork that branch. If everything goes well, you fall back to that branch, or you can agree with your team. Hey, people, let's try building a subgraph to solve the world hunger. If that doesn't work, let's try to do a subgraph for carrying token information. And then you have plan A and plan B. If you can't solve world hunger in a day, then you can do the fallback plan and having that other thing. If you agree on that before, it's even better. Now I'm going to give the apex on planning. This picture. It's a cliche picture. You've seen that a lot of times, dozens of times, hundreds of times maybe. And I don't know why people keep insisting in the idea of doing the first way, the top way. First, you build the component A, and then you build the component B, and then you build the component C, and then you join A, B, and C in a product. Makes sense, right? You're building a car, then you make one wheel first, then the second wheel, then you build the chassis, and then you assemble all together. Great. But what if you run out of time? What if one of those components give you problems, give you issues? Marcus, how many times have you seen people delivering like a broken product like this?
I've seen people deliver videos many times, just literally as slideshow, saying, "Hey, we didn't get anything working, but this is the way it was supposed to look."
And they work it for 70 hours. Sometimes like month-long hackathons, they work it for days, but they couldn't demo because they go on this path. They go building component A, component B, component C, and join them out. That makes sense. Remember the iceberg metaphor. You are doing something intuitive. It makes sense. But if you try and do something counterintuitive, I know that you want a car, okay. But what if you build a skate first? 2 hours, you build a skate. You have something to demo. Then you go down, improve it a little, you build a bicycle. It's way better than a skate. It's not the car yet, it's far from it, but at least you can deliver. You're solving the initial goal. Then you go for a motorcycle. Okay, we are almost there. And then you go for a car. If you don't have time to deliver the car, at least you deliver the motorcycle, which is good. It can solve the pain very well. Okay. It is true, the amount of effort to build an skate and go it all the way down to the car it's much higher than the effort to just build a car. Yeah, I agree with that point. Yeah, for building the car, you can have like 100 units of effort. And for going down all of this way, you can have like 300, 500, 1,000 units of effort. That is true, yes. But at least you guarantee that you're going to deliver something. And then you have a flow for you to test your assumptions. Oh, what I need is not a bicycle. I need a bolt. And then you discover that earlier, and then you can pivot, and this can lead you much quicker to success than go in the waterfall way of building a car component by component.
Fundamentals, everybody. Fundamentals. Just I remember learning this years ago, and I've caught myself on the first path. I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly what I want to do long run. And I think it's only natural to think like that. And I've made the mistake. I'm sure Matheus, you've made the mistake. This is normal to make this mistake. But discipline matters, experience matters, and not making this mistake.
Very common. And also we have a whole slide about communication, because the real problem of communication, like we spoke a while ago, it is easy to learn, yes, but it's super hard to master. Mastering this can put you in a super elevated position. You gotta need to solve information silos, make sure that everyone knows what you need to know. You need to overcome those language barriers that we spoke before. You have those different personal styles and cultures, and that's very difficult to deal with. I know. The best way that I know with technical people to deal with that is by writing. Writing facts, information, not opinions, but facts. Good written tools can be a notepad for you to write in, or some documentation, can be a GitHub repository or whatever with a README for you to build this documentation. Yes, great documentation. You're not going to deliver the documentation for the judge. I know, and it's like seems like wasted time. Yes, but do not skip documentation because it's fundamental for technical communication. Don't overdo documentation too. Okay, don't write too much because you might want to scrap it later. But for every hour or so of technical writing, try to do at least 5 minutes of documentation, even before. You write, you sketch something, everyone knows what needs to be done, and you can do that in a simple README file. You can put everything inside a simple README file, you're good to go. Be transparent and respectful, as we touched this subject before. This is very difficult, okay? But as a rule of thumb, it's better to be repetitive than to miss some important information. Explain it truly, say that again, see if the person understood what we're trying to say, with respect, of course. And this is the danger of documentation. Keep your information updated, because having no information at all, it's better than having wrong or incorrect information. Because when you read an outdated information, you're not going to ask. It is dumb to ask that again. You are saying that you want to build the front end in PHP. It's there for some reason, for example. But you discover that PHP is not good for Web3, you are using React, but you still have there in the documentation, we are going to build the front end in PHP. Then your front end guys start working, it's going to download libraries in PHP and all, and then you go there, wait, why are you using PHP? Because you wrote that. So keep the information updated, put the information there in a place that you're going to remember to review it later, because it's better not to have information and ask people instead of having wrong and outdated information there in the documentation.
Yeah. And I mean, I did bring up before about making sure your GitHub links were appropriate. Make sure your contact links, I can reach out to you. I mean, there's so many times that they have a beautiful subgraph and I see all the queries in the schema, but I can't get a hold of their actual repo because it's in a separate repo. They submitted the main repo, which was the full stack dApp, which is the full stack dApp, and they had a subgraph or a substream in a separate repo, and they didn't link to that. So then I can't officially judge it. And I'm like, I'm trying to find them. So like, make sure when you submit just great links and great contacts. Same thing as any job application, I suppose. It's just not a job, it's a repo, but you gotta be able to be contacted.
Gotta be updated. And a fun fact: a lot of problems that people face in hackathons are because outdated documentation from the bounties from the sponsors themselves. The graph is doing a great job on this, but I saw some other situations where a dependency changed or a method changed that they forgot to update documentation. And oh, how this causes problems during hackathons, cause a lot of stress. And then the DevRel is out red trying to fix that, but there's not enough time to
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it was like a year ago, there was a push in production or something like that. I remember very much a push in production. I forget what part of the stack it was, but it didn't. It was an ETHGlobal event. I think it was actually at Paris. Like something happened in somewhere in the stack, and it was like everyone was just like, "All right, this is a problem not only with hackathoners, but this is software in general."
This happens. This is part of the game.
It
The
is.
next the subject that I have is the sweet one, ideation. Because you can either go for this technical ideation where the technology is the value itself, where you would look at the hackathon bounties, speak with the sponsors, the job postings that are around, the industry trends that are around, which might be a valid path for hackathon ideas, or some business ideation that wouldn't have anything to do with the technology itself, but they would solve real world cases, real pains. And I know that some sponsors, some boutiques, they do count that in factor, they do count that heavy in factor. So if you have a good technological solution for the hackathon, but it's not solving any real world case, real world pains, just a technological marvel, this can be a bad submission, you know. That is a thing. What do you think about that, Marcus?
Yeah, I mean, I like. I always look at technology as a hammer. It's a very, very impressive, sexy hammer, but that's all it is. And so I don't want to get too stuck on the technology too much. It needs, the sooner you could think about the actual application, the better. And even before you even think about the tech, like really even step away from the tech for a few hours and be like, what is a problem in my life? And then go into how crypto might or might not apply.
Exactly, exactly. So this is why I have this framework I mentioned a while ago for finding good ideas. Okay, this is an image copied from some resources like build your own startup kind of thing. Yes, your hackathon projects can become startups later. So ideally, you would start at a pain that you have at your private life, or some people that you know. Maybe it's not a very good idea because you don't know them 24/7, or with your own life, or ideally a pain that you have at work when you're working or when applying for a job that does this work, because then you're going to solve a pain that can increase production, that can pay by itself. You pay $10,000 for that tool, but then at the end of the year, you're going to save 20,000. So it's a no-brainer to use that solution. Whenever you go the path of idea, technology application, I know a lot of people do that to maximize for the bounties. I did that in my first hackathon. We had like 11 sponsors. I implemented 10. It was a big Megazord kind of a Frankenstein, you know. I could earn like it was $5,000 or so, but it didn't become a product later. When I wanted to turn that in a product, I cut out all of the other sponsors that I targeted and remained with two that made sense. So this can be your path. I don't consider it the best path because judges will know that the bounties are not there just for attracting technological marvels. They are there to solve real world problems. You need to solve the problem of money, of assets, of ownership. Blockchain is there for that. So solve some pains. Building those megazord of bounty projects is not going to solve anyone else's pain. You know, this is my framework that I suggest for people when doing this ideation. The good way can be look at something that works out there. A company, I want to do that open source. A company, I want to do that with new pricing. A company, and I want to do that for a new niche, a new geography. That works very well because you have a clean idea where to start. Then you go building on top of that something that you know that already works. You can pick a project that is doing a marketplace for NFTs somewhere else, and then change the niche, change the use case, deploy a new subgraph or something else, and then this can be a hackathon project. It's not the biggest innovation. Yes, you lose a little innovation, but you gain so much on the part of validation that it balances out. And then you can go moving yourself in the direction of innovation later. If you try to maximize for innovation, that is good, but you might leave in the table a lot of validation out there because if it's brand new, if no one tried, why? Because you are the first person to think that idea, or because it's a bad idea and people would turn that down. Okay, so consider this when creating your hackathon idea. And about execution, last but not least, let me skip some slides here. Oops, wrong button. The execution can be divided in the technical execution and the presentation execution, and those two multiply. If you do a great technical execution but a bad presentation, you're going to lose to people that did an okay-ish technical execution and a good presentation, because those two multiply a lot. Depending on how you sell it, how you present this, your project is going to elevate a lot, or you are going to undermine the potential of the project. So whenever you're presenting, I have some suggestions here specifically for that. Record your video, perfect the pitch, and show things. Do not tell. If you have a slide, if you have a video, why are you telling things? Show. Show for the judge, right, Marcus?
It's. I mean, I can't tell you how many times. I mean, with these presentations, they come up to the table, and there's a line of 10, 15 people, and there's three sitting at the table. They throw their laptops down. Their eyes are just, and then they go in and they start talking about throughput volume, and they start talking about the difficulties they had. Like, oh man, I was like so tired about, I was learning this new language, or I'm like, I literally have my phone up and I'm showing like there's a clock because the judging has to be done at a certain time, and so being able to speak while unslept is a skill I don't think anyone should have. But if able, record a pitch on video. That's when someone's rested, when someone has an idea of within the first 10 seconds, I need to know the problem and I need to know the solution. Maybe in the first 10 seconds, I need to know the problem. And then in the first 20 seconds, I need to know what you're going to do to solve that problem. I need to know that right away, because that essentially frames the entirety of my brain into a arena. Because is this DeFi? Is this a regen? Is this degen? Is this a NFT project? Is this a complete joke project? I had, and this is full truth, I had someone come up. One of the best presentations I ever had was a joke project that was making fun of WorldCoin. It was called Buttcoin, and I'll never forget it. It was called Buttcoin, and all you had to do is scan your bottom. You just scan your bottom, and it would identify you by your butt. And I will never forget that, because the presentation was so good, and the product was based on AI, and it actually was able to scan. He didn't show anything. No, I did not try it, but I'll never forget Buttcoin ever, because it was a great presentation. And so if you're able to really have a something that sticks in that presentation, all you have is 3-4 minutes, man. Don't tell me about your blockers. Don't tell me about, I'm going to forget that. Tell me about the problem you're solving. Tell me with some, there's something memorable, something humorous, something that made you angry, like furious in the world, and you want to be angry and you want to vent to me. I'll remember that, because oh my God, I was so pissed about this and I needed to build this. Oh my God, like I will remember that. And then from there, that is just a much better pitch. And then the technology is the solution to your anger or your fear or something.
Exactly. And I like to put this in monetary factors for people to understand. Let's say you have $10. You have to put some in technical execution and some in presentation. People put 2 cents at presentation and $11 at technical execution. This is why most people fail. Whenever I have those boot camps with newcomers and they do a good presentation, sometimes they can win against very senior teams, not because they are better in a way. It's because they did a good coordination and then they have a better presentation. They do like $7 of technical execution, $3 of presentation, and then you have a great effect at the face of the judge. If you maximize for execution, technical execution is what most devs do, and I understand this is the most intuitive thing to do. You have a project, you have a hackathon, you need to code, right? But then you miss out the big part, the presentation. Executing the presentation can go there. And I have 3 suggestions. I don't know how much time you have, Marcus, but
There's no hard stop here. We can keep on going.
let's go for 5 minutes or so.
Sure.
Suggestions for before the hackathon, like prepare yourself before the hackathon. I know there is a rule in some hackathons that you can't use previous code, previous private code. Yes, that's true, but everything else you can. You can do coding boot camps and workshop before the hackathon. You can read the documentation about the bounties, the track. Why people leave to do that in the first day of the hackathon? You're wasting time. You could have done that before, you see, before the hackathon started. You can look at the team formation, ideation. If possible, eat well and sleep well the day before, then you can push yourself a bit more in the next days. Because this pre-hackathon work can multiply by 10 or divide by 10 by 100 your performance during the hackathon. When you are at the hackathon, of course, you have one goal, coding. But you don't start coding, in my suggestion. You start with the README file, the project description, key objectives, documentation, like we spoke, right? And then ideally, you would have those tasks, what you need to go to do first, sketch the UI, set up the repository. You would have some sort of planning, initial planning there in your README that you can track and use that for communicating. Okay? Then it's time to start coding. Yes, that's 1/3 of the hackathon is coding. For example, pick a good starter project that you would have the front end, the smart contract integration, the subgraphs, repository, like for example, scaffold lead. There's a lot of workshops like that you can start with a good starter kit that would solve most of the things that you want in the hackathon. And then you just build on top of that as you need. You can even try those starter kits before the hackathon. And then you know those tools. The best tool is the one that you know how to use. You know that. Just apply them there. You'll save like 3 days worth of coding just by doing this. Then you have a lot of competitive edge against people that don't do. But beware of incompatibilities. Sometimes you're going to need this React version or that Node version or that component there that is not compatible with Next.js, with Angular, whatever you're using. So beware of that when picking those starter kits and use templates wisely. Sometimes they can help you, but sometimes they can throw you off balance all the way. Same thing for AI generated code too. They can be very helpful, but they can totally mislead you when you're coding the project. Beware of that.
I say AI and templates are like salt, just the right amount.
Too much can kill your food, right? Yeah. Good. And during the hackathon, try to do that implementation of the planning. Plan your deliveries for each few hours. If it's a month-long hackathon, do that for each few days. Do the version control like we spoke. Do not skip that. Manage the time correctly. It's your most valuable resource, and know when it's time to change plan. Like do a war room. Hey people, this is not working. I'm trying to implement the graph for scanning people's butt, but I need a device for that. Let's change the plan. Let's not scan people's butt. Let's scan people's smart contracts with the graph is great. And then you communicate that well. You can do this fallback plan, trigger those fallback plan while you're monitoring that. If you don't monitor, you don't know when it's time to call that action. And that delivery, like Marco said, you need to conquer your audience in the first 30 seconds point. You're not going to have 1 minute. You don't have 2 minutes. You don't have 5 minutes. You have 30 seconds. If you fail those 30 seconds, anything you say after that is going to be handicapped at 20% of the potential. You can say that you solved cancer. People are not listening. They think that you're a scammer. They are afraid of scanning their own butts in your device. So those first 30 seconds are crucial for you to deliver your pitch. Then you keep your presentation short, everything that Marco said, because it's just repeating what Marco said. You're not going to have a good presentation if you don't deliver it well, no matter what you built in the previous days. And let's finish with this slide. What's the most important thing? First question you asked, Marco. What's the most important thing? And of course, it's to win bounties. No, just kidding. But yeah, but earning some money is cool. The most important thing is to have fun all the way. What's the point of doing something if it's not fun, if it's stressful? You should be able to enjoy every minute of it. It's not going to feel like you're working if you are doing that. And you should actively work on having a positive mental model. Avoid discussing with people, disagree, but with facts, not with opinions, because all sort of things are going to happen to throw you off a balance. Remaining positive and optimistic can have a very positive effect. It would enhance learning, would help you to communicate better, clear your mind for finding bugs faster, would prevent heart attacks. Okay, you don't want this to happen during hackathons. And if you're not having fun, if I'm not having fun mentoring, if Marcus is not having fun judging, if we're not having fun in what we're doing during the days, what's the point of it all? Are we doing this, right? This is what I find most
Great
important.
points. Great points.
Everything
I
we
mean,
do.
that's very good points on that. Just have fun. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to. There's so much going on, and to just keep perspective is a big challenge. And I have a question actually in chat specific to hackathons. If you're a beginner just getting going in hackathons, what would you recommend, Matheus? Like a 30-day long online hackathon where you have the time, but it's remote and you can take your time? Or would you recommend like a 3-day, like in-person, hackathon, but you're a junior, you're still getting started? What would be your thought about what would be best?
Yeah, if you have a goal of entering the industry, a 1 week hackathon or a 3 days workshop, or even like if global hackathons have those short workshops in the first day, even that is a good starter. Because remember,
You recommend the shorter ones in person?
yeah, depending on how much time you have, of course, but the major goals is starting the community, starting your relationship with the mentors, with the teachers, with the judges, with the speakers, with the sponsors, because that is going to bring you inside the industry. Building a hackathon project is just a small step. Okay.
Yeah. That's a good point.
What is your goal? How much time do you have to invest? Okay. And I'm going to suggest some resources. For example, after the hackathon, or this would apply before the hackathon too. What should you do? If you want to keep on building, or for this question, if you want to enter the industry, those two resources can be super valuable for you. Check out Builders DAO, like Marcus pointed out here in the chat. This is going to get you started very well. And if you have any questions, like if you want to ask questions, if you want to joke about things, if you want to ideate your project, your information, laugh around and sing off during the hackathon, we have a Telegram group for that, Venture Mind Academy, and it's open. Enter there, drop your intro, your project, your hackathon idea. We're going to give you the best resources, all for free. Never charge anything for instance. It's all for free, and you're going to find a lot of guidance there. I can guarantee to get you ready to hack in 3 days, in 5 days, in 1 day if needed, or your money back because you're not paying anything, right?
That's funny. And you are in the Miner Academy Telegram group. You're there, so people can find you there.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I can answer a question there. I can do guidance. It's mostly for memes and education, but it's a good stuff, right?
Memes and education. I think memes are part of education. Yeah, any good education at least.
No, education is part of memes.
Yes. I have a question in chat. What's the next hackathon you're planning to go to or mentor in, Matheus? And you can
ETHGlobal San Francisco.
Please share the links. ETHGlobal San Francisco.
San Francisco. Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Marcus
I will see you there.
Going to do a kick-ass barbecue there before. Everyone is invited. Okay. And it's going to be Brazilian barbecue with picanha.
Yes. Well, I just grilled before coming. Yeah, just a few weeks ago, and it was pretty good. I need to work. I did the salt at the wrong time, but anyways, I'm getting better.
I can teach.
Yes. There's another question here. Do you mentor about tech choices too? Like, are you pushing the graph subgraphs, substreams, and Firehose, or substream powered subgraphs?
Yeah, like
Are you aware?
anything
Yeah,
related, I can help. I'm starting this educational front here in Brazil, for example, doing in-person activation inside universities. We're going to have the first graphing campus here in the Federal University nearby where I live. So
love it.
this is all of the idea. And I can also point you to experts like Marcus and all his content if you need the super advanced things.
So
And I
much
can help
content.
that direction too. The greatest
Yeah.
content.
And I guess for those builders still on, Solana is now supported. So we have Solana on the graph. So go ahead and go get those programs and index those. So cool stuff. More content.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
I'm eager to speak to you all in those hackathons.
Yeah. Well, Matheus, I just want to thank you for your time. Really nice to get to know you. And my plan is to take this video and literally put it into our quick start documentation to be like, hey, or at least hackathon specific quick start documentation. Are you doing a hackathon? We have a document we give out to hackathoners. I'm going to put this right at the top. Like,
That's great.
watch this at 2x speed and go ahead and get all this information and make sure you're doing the hackathon right. Because this is the soft skills that really make a big difference at hackathons. That by day 2, day 3, people really wish they followed. So I'm really happy that we have this in the graph ecosystem. And for those of you watching, thank you for joining. I really appreciate your time. And once this is on, YouTube, feel free to share this out there with any hackathon out there. If you guys are doing any hackathons, of course, maybe review this because this is going to be helpful for many years to come. So, Matheus, thank you for your time. If you could just stay on, remember not closing the tab. And for those watching, thank you so much for joining Graph Builders Office Hours. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next week.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.